Good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Just somebody give me an indication they can hear me fine. Good evening, everyone. My name is PC Ijaz Chowdhury. I'm from Staffordshire Police. I'm here to really speak to you about recruitment opportunities or career opportunities within Staffordshire Police and the different routes into Staffordshire. So I'm a police officer by trade, so to speak. Been a police officer for about 25 years now, having worked for several forces. I transferred to Staffordshire back in November 2019. I'm currently the positive action officer for the force, so I'm involved in a lot of activity around recruitment, promotion, retention, and a lot of the community contact building around Staffordshire. So work very closely with the recruitment team and take part in all the career fairs at colleges, universities, community centres, religious institutions, and all around Staffordshire. So that's primarily what I do. So in terms of the opportunities around Staffordshire, apart from a lot of the opportunities around the staff roles that can be found on our intranet site, so Staffordshire Police intranet site, where a lot of the jobs are advertised. There are two main recruitment programs that we've got running at the moment. We recruit throughout the year, and that's for special constabulary, which is a voluntary role. A lot of the police staff roles, as I mentioned, come up on our recruitment website from time to time. We have vacancies for PCSOs, which is police community support officers. And that's really a stepping stone into policing, where you get an insight into what policing is like. You work very closely with neighbourhood officers. You are the eyes and ears of the community. You are interacting with the community. You deal with a lot of the lower level issues in terms of crimes or antisocial behaviours, etc. So we've got opportunities throughout the year for those particular roles. We also have opportunities for custody detention officers. So when a person is arrested and brought into custody and being booked in, being processed, whilst they are in detention or in our care, as we call it, the custody detention officer is a staff role where they support the custody sergeant in ensuring that the detainees' welfare, their rights are looked after while they're in our care. So you are dealing with detainees, their needs, taking them to the medical rooms to see the nurse or the doctor, bringing them out to go to interviews, letting them know if they've got any messages from their loved ones, letting them know that whether the legal advice has arrived, like solicitors or appropriate adults, and just really making sure that their welfare is looked after. So a really key role where you build up a really close relationship with the detainee. So that's custody detention officer. We call them CADOs for short. So there's opportunities for those throughout the year. The other one is the contact centre. And these are basically our staff role for the 999 operators at our headquarters. So that's really monitoring the one-on-one calls that come into the force, as well as the 999 emergency calls that come in. Again, really key role in that you are really the first port of contact for any member of the public calling for assistance or help, or might just have a query. And you are the first person they will speak to. So a really key role for those. And again, a lot of skills in terms of communication, listening skills, accuracy, disseminating information, and then passing on the information that's being passed to you onto the relevant officers. So if there's an emergency, a 999 call, where somebody's being seriously hurt, or there's a report of a large accident or an incident, again, really important for you to get that information down accurately from somebody who may well be really distressed, maybe under the influence of alcohol, maybe under the influence of drugs, may even have mental health issues, or it may well be a child on the phone. So you get all the variety of calls coming into the call center or the contact center. And your key role is to really use your communication skills and all the other training that we give you prior to you starting that role, to make sure that the correct information is passed to the correct personnel. It may well be some calls that come in are not necessarily police related calls. And it may just require an ambulance or a fire brigade. It may even need the council. It may not need police intervention. But that's down to you to disseminate from the information that's coming in. So another key role, and we recruit for the contact center again throughout the year. And all of these roles can be found on our the Staffordshire Police Careers website. Then leading on to the police officer roles, there are two really main routes into policing for Staffordshire Police at the moment. So one is what we call the PCDA, the Police Constable Degree Holder Apprenticeship. So for that, the entry requirement is a GCSE in Maths and English, grade A to C or level 4, or any other level 3 qualification, which equates to 64 UCAS points. So example of level 3 qualification are A levels, BTEC, national diplomas, qualifications of that nature. So you join as a probationary police officer with a view of completing a 3-year degree in policing. Now, normally that would cost you if you were to do that elsewhere, i.e. a university on your own. But we are working in partnership with Staffordshire University, and that degree at the moment is free of charge. There is no charge for you to obtain that degree. So we are basically paying you as a full-time probationary police officer with a full-time starting salary, and you are then studying for a degree in policing, which will take 3 years. So when you join, one of the processes that you will have an online eligibility criteria assessment, whereby you fill out certain bits of information to prove that you are eligible for the role of a police officer. So things that would not fulfill your criteria, or you would be disqualified from applying, would be association with any far right, far left groups, any extremist views, things like that. So you fill out the form. If you pass the eligibility criteria process, you're then invited to 2 formal tests that we hold at the moment. The first one is online. At the moment, because of COVID, we're still just about coming out of COVID, but most of our processes and assessments are still running live via Teams. So you have an online test that you are invited to complete. Now, part of my role, and I'm part of a very small team, my colleague Dave Finn, and we have a equality and diversity lead, Dion Johnson, so 3 of us in our team. So we hold evening support sessions to support candidates with the online test assessments. This is to give you guidance and support around how to prepare for those online tests, the type of questions you may get asked, how to prepare for those, the type of information that you need to research, the type of information that you need to know prior to completing those online tests. Now, what we also do, as like most other forces, in fact, all of the forces, we are underrepresented with certain candidates from protected characteristics. So you may be aware of the Equality Act 2010, which basically eliminates discrimination and promotes fairness at work, particularly when it comes to employment. So the organization looks at itself, and where we are underrepresented, we target those candidates to ensure that we get a lot more representation coming in to ensure that our workforce reflects the communities that we police. So at the moment, we are underrepresented with female candidates from Black, Asian and minority ethnic backgrounds, candidates from LGBTQ plus community, as well as those have a disability. Now, with disability, there's a historic misconception that in 20, 30 years ago, if you had a disability and you disclosed it to an employer before the Equality Act came in, the employer could quite rightly not progress your application form because of that disability. They're not allowed to do that now. You have a legal protection under the Equality Act, whereby if you have a disability, as long as you declare it, and each disability is judged on its own merits and its own seriousness according to the role that you're about to perform. And organizations and public bodies like the police service and employers are under a legal obligation to ensure that reasonable adjustment is put in place for you to ensure that you can still do your job with somebody with a disability similar to your colleague. So that reasonable adjustment is put in place. So we encourage people or candidates to disclose any form of disability that they have to ensure that we can put that reasonable adjustment in place. While I'm speaking about disability, while I remember, we also have a new scheme running at the moment called the Disability Passport. So basically what that is if you are already employed by Staffordshire Police or you join and you are successful and you've declared a disability to us, that's recorded electronically for your eyes only and for basically sits in HR. If you were to then move around the organization on a promotion basis, or you specialize in a particular specialism, so you went from uniform into CID, or from CID into firearms, or into traffic, or perhaps helicopters, child protection, neighborhood, any other specialism whatsoever, that disability passport, the electronic information about your reasonable adjustment follows with you. So there isn't a need to have that discussion with your new line manager every time you move a department or every time you get promoted or you move into a specialism. Your line manager will automatically have that. They will know the reasonable adjustments that need to be put in place for you. So prior to you arriving at your new role, that adjustment hopefully will be in place. So that's a new scheme that we're running at the moment, which should be really useful and will cut through a lot of red tape and make it easier for candidates to be able to move around the organization and have all those adjustments put in place for them so they can perform their role as best as they can. So that's a little bit about disability. So we target underrepresentation, particularly with our positive action support sessions. We have them generally in the evenings, and that's for allowing candidates to either finish work or if they're in college or universities. They're usually held on Teams. Again, our link is sent out to you and you dial in similar to the one tonight. And then we go through the whole process of preparing for your online tests on a support session. So if you are successful at the online test stage of the assessment process, a few weeks down the line, you're then informed of the second formal test. The second formal test is an assessment centre. Now, again, historically, before COVID, you would normally be going away to an assessment centre somewhere, and you will be taking part in face-to-face scenarios where you would be assessed by an assessor about your compatibility or capability or certain skills and criteria that's required for you to be a police officer. Just at that point, one of the things that we normally do advise or guide candidates on is if you are thinking about applying for a role in the police service, do have a look at a website called College of Policing. It can be found on Google. So if you put in College of Policing on the Google search, that comes up. And in that search, there are the various information about the different routes into policing, as well as the role profile of a police constable, the daily responsibilities of a police officer, and also the competency value framework is called CVF, Charlie Victor Foxtrot, Competency Value Framework. And what that highlights is certain characteristics and values and behaviors that you are essentially marked against when you do your online tests, as well as the assessment center processes. So we really ask you to start looking at that and familiarize yourself with how those competency value framework values fit into the role, a role profile of a police constable. The other thing we ask you to look at, again, is a lot of the police assessments and the applications stage of the process, or any competency-based interview which is online, is that the assessors tend to look for the STAR model approach. If you're not familiar with it, if you just put in STAR, S-T-A-R, STAR model of interviewing in, again, any Google search or YouTube, there's lots of information around why the STAR model is used, how it's used, and why employers or assessors particularly like the use of the STAR model. So that's another one to just bear in mind and just start thinking about, and just have a look at how the STAR model is used for the assessment processes, particularly in interviews. So those are some of the guidance that we provide you with your assessment centres and the online test. So if you happen to be successful at the assessment centres stage, which is the second formal stage of the process, you then go straight on to what we call the pre-employment checks. Now, at the moment, different forces are working slightly differently. Staffordshire, at the moment, there is no formal interview at the moment whilst you pass your online test and the assessment centre test. If you pass those two formal tests, there is no final interview at the moment. So you go straight into pre-employment checks, and that consists of your medicals, your fitness, eye test, drugs test, forced vetting, references, things like that. Now, with police fitness, again, we give guidance to candidates around the police fitness test. It's called a police bleep test, different names for it. But again, if you look it up on Google or search it under police fitness test or police bleep test, it'll come up. And again, there's lots of images down there and videos of the police bleep test or fitness test being run. The level that you need to get to is level 5.4, which isn't really difficult, but you just need to ensure that you are fit and healthy to do that. Again, if fitness isn't your day-to-day routine, you need to look at that and start preparing for it prior to your application, really. Because what you don't want to do is go through through the application process, pass through the online tests, pass the assessment centres, you get to the pre-employment checks, and then you fail the fitness. Because all that hard work then goes to waste. You do give a couple of chances for the fitness, but it's better to really be prepared and pass first time. So it's level 5.4 that you need to achieve. But if you are a fit kind of person, that's part of your daily routine, you jog on often, and you go to the gym, have a go at it, see what level you can reach, and if you can leave level 5.4 quite easily, nothing to worry about, you're almost there. The other thing I will say is about the vetting. Now, that's really crucial because vetting officers check your background. They don't just check your background, they will check background of your family, your associates, your relatives, everything they need to know. They'll check your financial situations, your social media accounts, everything else that you need to know. Just bear with me 1 second. While I'm going, I'm just reading some questions that are coming in. How old do you have to be? 18. So 18 or over is the age. So the question was, how old do you have to be an apprentice with the police? And when do the applications open? How many spaces are available? So you have to be 18 and over. If you go onto the police, Staffordshire Police internet website and go onto the careers page and then put in their PCDA or the DHEP program, which is a degree holder, which I'll come on to in a sec, that'll give you an indication to create a job alert. And as soon as a recruitment campaign is about to go live, you will then get notification via text to say, we're about to go live in a week or 2 weeks. So get ready to apply. So that's the best way forward with that one. Hope that answers the question. How many spaces? Again, we recruit for PCDA, we recruit twice a year. For DHEP, twice a year again. A lot of people or candidates tend to not be successful either through vetting, through fitness, may well be medical reasons. Some don't pass online tests, some pass the online test but don't pass the assessment centres. So there's a lot of fallout. So there's also always plenty of space. If not necessarily on the first recruitment campaign, there'll always be one at the end. So we tend to run one at the beginning of the year and then one towards the middle and towards the end of the year, about August, October time. Hope that answers that question. The vetting, I was just going to say that just make sure you have a look at your social media account, because as now sitting, listening, you are members of the public. You can have views as long as they're not, you can do whatever you wish as long as it's not illegal or unlawful. But once you become police officers, what you like, what you dislike, who you like on your social media account, what views you hold, what political opinions you hold, all of those are really curbed. So you have to be really careful not to have certain likes, dislikes, and shares on your social media account. But we can run through that. But just have a look at anything that's on there that's perhaps inappropriate and start to clear those out as you start the progress with your application. So I quickly I'm mindful of the time. I just quickly want to go through the second option of joining Staffordshire Police, which is a degree holder apprenticeship. So virtually it's the same, 18 and over. Basically, you already hold a degree as long as it's not a criminology, a degree in crime or criminology degree, you can have any other degree. So you're already a degree holder. You join as a student officer. You go through your crime training. You're a probationary police officer. But for 2 years, you study for a higher national diploma in policing. So it gives you an additional qualification on top of your degree, again, free of charge. And at the end of the 2 years, if suddenly you think, having done policing for 2 years, it's not for me, I didn't realize I would see dead bodies. I didn't realize I'd have to go to incidents where there's violence. I didn't realize I'd be dealing with fights on the street. I didn't realize I'd be dealing with accidents. I didn't realize I'd be taking people to hospitals. Whatever the scenario may be, if it's not for you, you can take your diploma or a degree, whichever one you choose, with you and take that with you as a free gift, if you like, and take it out to industry or commerce, wherever you choose to work. If you suddenly decide to stay and think, no, this is exactly what I wanted to do, policing is fits around my my qualities, the way I'm as a person, then you are handed a 35-year career. So when I joined, it was a 30-year career. It's now 35 years. So it's a long commitment for being a police officer. So really, these are two main routes into policing. So the PCDA, you don't necessarily need a degree, but you study for a degree for 3 years. So your probationary period is for 3 years. And your degree holder program, where you need to have a degree, but you study for a higher national diploma in policing. Now, once you've joined, you will have a classroom-based law input, where you're given all the law input in relation to your powers of search, powers of stopping, powers of seizure, identifying different crimes. So apart from the theory, there are a lot of practicals that you will be involved with. Once you pass that stage, you're then sent on to a team, either a neighborhood team or a response team, where basically you're in full uniform and you're assigned a tutor. The role of the tutor is to really take you to live jobs. So there are no actors in those scenarios. They're real jobs. You're going to real incidents, real crimes, and you then deal with those incidents. And your tutor then basically assesses you as to how you're performing, how you apply the law that you've learned in the classroom, as well as the scenarios that you did with real life crimes, how you're using your knowledge, how you're identifying the correct crime. Do you know the differences between different crimes? Are you using your powers and your knowledge appropriately, adequately, and everything else that comes with it? So you're being assessed all the way through. So that's for a 2 to 3 months period. Once you are fit and the tutor feels that, yeah, you have what it takes to be a competent police officer, you are then signed off for what we call fit for independent patrol. So basically then, although you're still in your probationary period, you can be sent to jobs on your own. So within that two-year period, you then have your driving test, police driving test, which is very different to our own driving test that you do if you want to learn how to drive. Again, you need to be competent to how to drive a police car. And again, that type of driving is very different to the one we normally do when we just pass a test. So if you pass your driving, and then you get sent to a lot more jobs. Once you've done your 2 years or 3 years, depending on which route you enter, you are then a fully fledged constable with Staffordshire Police. You're there for 35 years. You then really have an opportunity to specialize in whatever you want to do. Usually they say about 3 to 4 years in the uniform role, you get an idea of what you are really good at. And that will suit every individual differently. You may be the type that really likes investigating things quite deeply, really digging deep, and you might find CID is the route for you, and you might want to veer towards that. You might find, actually, I like real good traffic jobs. I like police chases. I like fast cars. I like dealing with disqualified drivers, bad drivers, people that break the law, people that don't wear seatbelts, etc., etc., people that don't have insurance and are driving on the roads. So you might veer towards the traffic option. Generally speaking, a lot of ex-military guys that join us after a little while, because they've got that firearms experience and that exposure to firearms, they tend to veer towards firearms unit. Again, all of these specialist units have their own assessment processes that you need to pass. So for firearms, I believe, so 3-week full-time course, which they put you through a lot of scenarios under pressure. And as long as you pass the firearms assessment process, you then become a firearms officer. So all of these, CID is the same thing. There is a DC exam that you have to pass, which basically is all about detailed investigations into crimes. That can lead into major crime, a regional crime. So it just goes deeper and deeper, depending on your own sort of preference. So you can then specialize into whatever you wish. So the options are open. From my personal experience, just to share with you, I joined almost 25 years ago. I've never looked back. I've done a variety of roles, and I'm enjoying every bit of it. It's your work-life balance is you really need to understand that. So weekends are not your weekends anymore. So a lot of the weekends you work. So it's a shift pattern, rotating shift pattern. If you think of every bank holiday, Christmases, again, you work it on a rota basis, but every time there's a public holiday or a bank holiday or a celebration, or there's a protest, there's a march, we're going to be busy. So while other people may be off bank holidays, we will be working, because as people are off, they come out and they celebrate. So the towns are full with the clubs and the pubs are absolutely full, which requires policing. So we're usually full. So the shift pattern runs, generally speaking, again, it's slightly different from force to force, but generally you do earlies, lates, what we call late lates or early noons, and then nights. So earlies are 7 till 4, 7 till 5. Lates generally are 2 to 10 or 2 to midnight or 3 to midnight with slight variations. Then the late lates tend to run from 5 p.m. till about 3 or 2 p.m. That's generally for the Friday night, Saturday night economy, outside clubs and pubs. And then you have your night shift, which generally is from 10 p.m. till 7 a.m. On a shift basis. So generally it's about you work six days and you get 4 days off, generally speaking. But each force is slightly different. Some do 2 earlies, 2 lates, 2 nights, and then 4 off. Some do 3 on, 2 off, but more or less it's a shift pattern which rotates. So that's something to think about in terms of any childcare, things that you need to compromise on or have a look at. But other than that, it's been fascinating 25 years. I've enjoyed most of it. I've been in some sticky situations. And something we always said to the candidates on our support sessions is communication is really key. And that's why when you look at the CVF, the Competency Value Framework I talked about earlier, with the College of Policing, Competency Value Framework talks about communication as being one of the key characteristics, key skill that you need to be a police officer. It's only when communication fails that we have other elements that are given to us to protect us, as well as to utilize us to carry out our duties lawfully. So we get given handcuffs, pepper spray, which is spray, tasers now, a routine, and baton. Generally, most forces tend to have that. So we only tend to use those when communication really fails. And the communication really only fails, again, with those individuals that are either under the influence of drink, drugs, or even might have mental health issues. But generally speaking, if you've got really good communication skills and you could talk to people and you can make them understand what's going on, explain every bit of the scenario to them, generally speaking, 9 times out of 10 tends to work. In all of my 25 years, I've only been assaulted once. And that was only in the first 2 years of my probation period. And that was almost 25 years ago. And that was because I was learning the job. And so you make mistakes in the first 2 years. But once you've learned that, you try not to make that mistake again. So that's in 25 years. That's not bad going as far as I'm concerned. I have another quick question on my phone. For the PCDA, what is the split between working days and study days? Good question. I'm glad you asked that. Basically, within the shift pattern, you are given time to do your PCDA or academic work for your degree and the higher national diploma. There's no expectation for you to do that at home or on your rest days. Within your shift pattern, you'll be given adequate hours where you come into work, but that will be your study hour. So it might be a morning, might be a whole day. You will come in, everybody else will do their policing duties, but on the rota, you will be studying for your academic qualification, whether that be the high national diploma or the degree in policing. So you'll be given that time. There's no expectation for you to go home and do that, or do it at weekends. You do it all at work, and most of it's online. So there's no need for you to travel to university or a college or anything like that. My 13 minutes is up, unless there's any other quick questions somebody wants to ask me before I get taken off the screen. If not, I want to thank everybody for taking time out to listen to what I've had to say. I wish you the very best of luck in your policing career. If you have any queries that you want to email us at the Positive Action team, the email is positive.action@staffordshire.police.uk. So it's positive.action@staffordshire.police.uk. Any queries, send us an email. I'll be more than happy to answer. I picked that up, and I'll be more than happy to help you wherever I can. I want to thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you for listening.